feel that about the not good. I had a rough 2 hours before I came here. Working my fingers to the bone. Slaving away. So, last week we talked about David and Goliath, right?
Yes.
Right.
No.
Yes, no, maybe so. Whatever swirls Brentley's in his head.
Yep,
So this week we're going to talk about what's standing for what's right. Phil get you. He's a ninja. He's gonna get you. Now, we're going to talk about what's standing and what's right. Does anyone have the slightest idea what standing up for what's right is? Just raise your hand. You don't need to answer me. Just like, I do. I think I do. Yes, no, maybe so.
I have a hypothesis.
Sky, she doesn't know, so we're gonna help Sky figure that out today. Anyone else who doesn't know, you're gonna figure out today too. We're gonna use a little bit of what's wrong, what's right, what's wrong. Usually, right and wrong comes from a point of view, a way a person sees life. It's kind of tied to our morals. Anyone know what a moral is? It's kind of something. Ashton. So I wouldn't say it's a lesson. It's kind of a stance you have in life. Kind of like that one thing, if somebody does it to you, it's like...
Something that's part of you?
It's something, yeah, I would say something that's part of you. Kind of like if you have the stance, if I ever get cheated, or like you guys are teens, you got boyfriend, girlfriend that cheat on you, and you go, bye, loser, out the door. Because your moral code is you don't believe in cheating. You think that's wrong, that's bad. And that you shouldn't, I'm not going to talk to you if you're cheating. 7 minutes already.
Wow.
Oh, 7th commitment. I was like, 7 minutes already? Man, we're flying.
That's the fastest 7 minutes of my life.
It said in the Bible, there's always been a theme of right and wrong. The whole Bible, what they call right and wrong is good and evil. Good, obviously, being loyal to God, being loyal to the Lord, following Jesus. Evil would be listening to the devil, listen to the little. So, you got two little friends on your shoulder, you always seen them cartoons back in the day.
Yeah.
You should do this. You should do that. You're hearing that on your shoulder. That's what the Bible's talking about. And if you're following the devil, you're rebelling against God. I tell you, that's not going to end well for you. So, we're going to talk about a good old guy named Daniel. If there's any Daniels in here, I'm not talking to you. I don't think there's a Daniel in here though. So this is kind of, I'm going to give you a little bit of setting. There's a lot of words here, a lot of typing here. I'm going to try to keep it quick for you so you're not like, oh great, I'm in a high school lecture. I don't want to hear this. So the setting is Babylon, which is kind of in the Middle East. Kind of, I would say, a couple 100 miles or so from Jerusalem. And there's a king there. His name is Darius. King Darius. Actually, if you look up this guy, he's a real person. This is where the Bible's real. Even though I believe the Bible's real everywhere. So he had, a king has many advisors and governors and stuff. So hey, what's up, bestie? We're gonna do this for the country. And one of the ones that he really, really cared about was Daniel. Because for some reason, Daniel, he had a very good spirit about him. I believe that good spirit stands for Holy Spirit. I think I'm missing this one here. I'll just wait it. So he really liked Daniel. Hi, Facebook. And he cared about Daniel. And because Daniel would interpret dreams for him and would advise him on many things. And let's just say the other they call them satraps and governors. I don't know what a good term for a satrap would be, other than maybe governor. And they're very jealous of him. They don't like that the king is like homies with Daniel. So they start making this plot to get rid of Daniel so they can gain more favor with the king. And that's where it goes here in Daniel 6. If anyone, like I said, anyone ever brings a Bible in here, I try to let you know where I'm at. Right now I'm going to be in Daniel 6. And And then it says, so they created a plot to take up Daniel. All the governors of the kingdom, the administrators, the satraps, the counselors, the advisors, that's a whole lot of people, have consulted together to establish a royal statute to make a firm decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, and they're talking to the king about this, it shall be cast into a den of lions. You can look at it alive. Now, O king, establish a decree and sign in writing so that it cannot be changed according to the law of Medes and the Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, King Darius, he was like, no, I'm king, it would be nice to be worshipped, because that's what they're saying. We should worship only King Darius. We should, Darius. And so, he was like, yeah, I really like that, He wasn't thinking about it. Well, anyway, and unfortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, because this is where kind of our lesson talks about when we're talking about standing what's right, standing for what's right, what we do anyways, regardless of what anyone says. Daniel, he was aware of this. He was there in that meeting, and he didn't care. So he went home, and he went in his upper room, and when, a lot of people, in the Jewish customs and in the Muslim customs, they always face their altars or where they pray towards. This is a nice little freebie. How I like to give freebies for chips. That they always face their altars towards Jerusalem, towards the Holy Land. They even do that in the Muslim religion as well. That's why sometimes you'll see churches weird catty-cornered in Jewish and Muslim churches, because they're facing back towards Jerusalem, where the Holy Land is, and where they believe the Messiah is going to be. So he opens his window in his upper room, and he's praying out the window. You just got told you couldn't pray to anybody but the king, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to pray out the window to somebody that's not the king. So he just was like, I'm going to do it anyways. And he knelt down, and he did it, and he did this 3 times a day. So, I didn't want people to walk by and see this. So, the king's men, I'm just saying king's men, so I don't have to say governors, satraps, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say the king's men and the advisors, they saw Daniel, and they reported him to the king and told him what Daniel was doing, and they were saying that Daniel didn't care about you, he doesn't respect you, and he's breaking your law. You need to do something about it. And the king, he was just very, very upset, very pained, because once again, he loved Daniel, and he cared about Daniel, who Daniel was. And so he spent the whole night. How we were talking about where we had that situation where we were facing the floor last week. And so he was doing that the whole night. And he actually, that morning, was going to free him and was going to let him go. But the king's men were like, Remember that little thing in the law that says you can't take back your decrees? If you do that, even you can be in trouble, even though you're the king. So he had no choice. And so he upholds the law, and he tells Daniel, and this is in Daniel 6:16. It said, your God whom you serve continually will deliver you. And he's talking about putting Daniel in the lion's den. And Daniel was sealed in the lion's den by the king and had to spend the night with ferocious lions. These lions were probably starved. They probably had never ate anything, or obviously ate, but just enough to survive. So they're hungry. And the king, he did not sleep that night. Once again, he had another night pacing. Tell you 2 nights in a row, you're not sleeping, or you go cuckoo. And the king arose early in the morning, and he went flying out the house. He was like, I need to know what happened to Daniel. He went flying out that house. And he said, in Daniel 6:19, he said, then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried out with a lamenting voice, you say, like, desperate, oh, please, Daniel. And he said, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, be able to deliver you from the lions? And then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you. And the king gave his command, and so they bring him out, and he's telling the king, my God delivered me. So I've done nothing wrong. I've not betrayed you. I've done nothing. I just continue to serve my God. Even though you made this decree, I continue to serve my God. And so the king, he was obviously mad. He's mad at his people who made him do this to Daniel. So them poor guys, this is their fate here. And the king gave the command, and they brought those men who accused Daniel, and they cast them in the den of lions. Them, their children, and their wives. And the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces before they ever came to the bottom of the den. They straight up destroyed their whole families. Took them all out. Because they accused Daniel of this, and the king made them punished. They didn't even make it into the bottom of the pit before they were gone. I'll tell you, how did Daniel survive if that's how quick they went out? And the finale here, and King Darius was so appalled, because obviously he just watched his own men just get slaughtered. He was so appalled by the acts of God that he wrote, to all peoples, nations, languages that dwell in the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men must tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and steadfast forever. His kingdom is the one who shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall endure to the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in heaven and earth. Who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. And that's kind of how this story ends. And think about how crazy it is. You got a king who does not believe in God. He actually worships pagan gods and multiple gods and goddesses. And he believes in all those multiple gods and goddesses. But he was so appalled by what had happened, which actually, funny enough, another king did the same thing before that, and that was Nebuchadnezzar. And what? And I've talked about that one before.
Yeah.
I actually preached on that once. And even though he believed in all these gods, he put out the God Almighty, the God of Jacob, the God of Moses, the God of Daniel, the God of Jesus Christ, our Lord, and made his people. Because remember, this is a royal decree. That means you have to follow it to a T. And he said, you better tremble when that God is mentioned. You better be fearful of that God, because he is a deliverer. He saves lives. And he protects his own, so don't ever come against him. And that was a royal decree. I tell you, that's a little bit crazy there. Sorry, my mind is... That's about the end of the... Oh my gosh, Father Abraham. But that's about the end of that lesson there. But now that's kind of where I talk to you a little bit. That's where I kind of get a little preachy, maybe even start a little yelling, get a little wild, because we kind of were talking, me and Pastor Phil were talking that we want to get you guys to realize what a Sunday service is like, what preaching is like, and stuff like that. Kind of get you into it, so you know if you ever decide to come Sunday, you kind of know what you're doing, what you're walking into. So I'll tell you, there's many times in your life where you're going to have to make a choice, like buddy here, you're what, 16, 17, and you're in that age where you're making friends. They're going to start asking you to do things you don't want to do, like smoking, drinking. I mean, you probably do have some very good friends, because I've heard you say you've got saved friends, Christian friends. But, at that age 17, people start asking you, do you want to go to parties? Do you want to drink? Do you want to get into trouble and mischief and stuff? And you're going to do things. And if you're, say, Christian, that's very against God. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's going to always be against God because that's sin. It says, and if you want to know where I talk about where drinking is a sin, it says not to partake in spirits. And I can't remember what book that is. I think it's Corinthians. And spiritism back in the day was another word for drinking. And they said don't be a drunkard and don't do all these wild things that will alter your mind. So you guys are at that age, right? So, and when you guys go to school and you hear, like, some of you might actually be out of school by now. I know there's a couple 21-year-olds, 20s in here. And they ask you, and this is going to hit home a little bit. It hit home for me because at first I kind of went into the lion's den, skipping like, ooh, daisies. And they ask you, will you deny your God? They ask you, will you do these crazy things, practice witchcraft, practice Satanism, practice all these crazy things, play with tarot cards, play with Ouija boards. I've done it all. I've played with them all. And I'll tell you, when I say that you got to be careful with that stuff, I mean it. And because it does bite back. I kind of went, and it did bite me back. I went through a rough time in my life. And eventually I'm going to beat it into your guys' head until you're dead about some of the stuff I went through. Because when I say I went to the lion's den, I was a member of the occult. I practiced Satanism. I practiced all this stuff. And I was hanging out with the lions even though they were slowly gnawing at my neck and I didn't know it. And what saved me, and it's not going to be the same for all of you guys, or, it's not one cut and dry. You guys are going to have a million directions to go in life. Sorry, Facebook, for the rambling. That was my mother's prayers. Because there was a point I was so lost in that lion's den and going through some crazy stuff that I couldn't pray for myself. I couldn't help myself. And it ultimately took my mother praying for me a lot on like a daily basis almost. And I just don't want to see some of you guys go through that, But I urge you, if you are a saved Christian here, and someone tells you to do something against God, even though it's going to make you be hated, stand for God. I ask you to stand for God today, because at the end of the day, when we die, I talked about it last week, and I'm going to keep talking about it. Like next week, I believe I'm going to try to teach on salvation. Actually explain to you guys what getting saved is, because we talk about it a lot, but I don't think I've ever explained it. And you get to the gates, and the next thing you know, you're getting put in this big old room, and there's God sitting in front of you, and he said, so how come when I asked you to stand for me, and your friend told you that you needed to cheat on your girlfriend or commit some sort of sin. I'm going to just say some sort of sin. I'm not going to get into details, about 3 minutes. And you chose to commit that sin. And you got to explain to God why you committed that sin and why you're justified in committing that sin. I'm going to tell you, it's not going to work. He's going to look at you and say, son or daughter, you lost. You need to figure yourself out. And then the only thing at that point you got, if he says you lost, is you better hope you have Jesus. And I believe a lot of you guys in this room have Jesus already. So I just, as I wrap up here, I just say, stand for what you believe in. And hopefully what you believe in is Jesus Christ. And that's what I hope you stand for today. And just one quick little question. I don't have any tokens or anything. Well, actually I do. I have one, and I just threw it. I got it. Hold on. Everyone say bye, Facebook. Bye, Facebook.